Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us today for the class that's being taught by Gary Sloan, and it will be transitioning to a multi-inspector firm. Before Gary gets started, I would like to go over just a couple of points with you, and that way you'll know what to do and what I need to do. We are not making certificates. If you would like to have the credit on your InterNACHI account or your profile there, please make sure that you add them manually to your dashboard on nachi.org/credits. And then also add this to your chat. This is not for state continuing education. If you have questions during the presentation, please put them in the chat bar so that we can ask Gary and he will be able to answer those classes. Of course, not all questions can be answered, but we will try to get most of them that we can. All right, Gary, I'm going to turn it over to you. And if anyone needs anything, just let me know.
All right, well, good morning. How many do we have on now, Brenda?
The attendance, I can't tell you at this moment. We had 321 that had registered. Right now, it looks like we have 44 in the class.
Okay, great. Well, listen, my name is Gary Sloan. I am with the owner of Discovery Inspections. We're based in the Atlanta area. We started our business in 1997. This is an exciting opportunity for me to share with all of you the things, well, pretty much the mistakes that I've made over the years and how I've overcame them and the successes as well. You know, ever since COVID started, I've always aspired to have one of these Zoom meetings in my underwear. I'm not going to start that today, so everybody is safe there. So I did put together a presentation, but you know, here's the thing. I thought about that this morning. And I thought about just scrapping the whole thing. And you think, well, gosh, why would you do that? Well, the reason is I kind of want it to be more of a conversation than a presentation. And so I kept everything in there. The other thing too, with InterNACHI and Brenda's permission, I'd like to make my presentation available to anyone. So you're not trying to scramble and write notes or using your phone to screenshot. Is that okay, Brenda?
It is, and
okay.
We will put it online as well, Gary.
Okay, good. All right, so there's that. A little bit of history on me, just so you know where I came from. I joined the Navy in 1982, and I specialized in avionics, and then I got moved into kind of quality control, quality assurance, and I became an aircraft quality control inspector. And you can imagine the immense responsibility or sense of responsibility that I had at the time. You know, and later on, as I got into home inspections, I realized there's a lot of similarities between inspecting a house and inspecting an aircraft. And what I mean by that is they both have a structure, they both have an exterior skin, they both have electrical systems, they both have you know, a lot of similarities. And so, you know, when that pilot would hop in the cockpit and he'd, you know, give the thumbs up, it was really a question to the quality control folks saying, hey, I'm about to fly in this thing. Have you thoroughly inspected all the systems and components? And if so, are they serviceable? Or more importantly, is this aircraft worthy of flight? And the quality control person would respond back with another hand gesture that would look like this if everything's okay. And what that meant was the quality control person used every bit of observation skills, knowledge, processes, tools to ensure just that. And when we'd give a thumbs up, it would be, I'm so confident that that aircraft is worthy of flight, I'll get on it with you. Now, when you roll that over into the inspection world for residential and commercial, buildings don't fly. I get that. But the reality is the process is very similar, or it should be. We're looking at the various systems and components within the systems to make sure things are the way they're supposed to be. So I got out of the Navy after 8 years, got picked up by Delta Airlines as a mechanic in the avionics department. And then really through no ambition of my own, I kept getting promoted until near the end of my career. I was doing safety and environmental health and responsible for 4,400 employees. And huge sense of responsibility. We interface with the fire marshal, the EPA, OSHA, the DOT. And a lot of that experience proved to be helpful in doing commercial inspections. So, so that was an easy transition. I got code certified and started doing new construction, and then certainly commercial as well. And some of the commercial inspections that that I've been on include Duracell, Frito-Lay, Michelin, Georgia Pacific. Been down to Cape Canaveral to inspect some of the facilities at NASA. So a wide variety of exposures, and just love what I do. So a lot of experience there. I've personally done just over 12,000 inspections, and I think my back and my knees would confirm that as well. But let's get into the purpose of why you've joined us, and that's scaling the business. And what does that mean? I was a single man operator for 10 years, and I just had this notion in my head that no one can inspect as well as me, and why do I want to take the risk of somebody else missing something or causing damage to a house? I was making a pretty decent living, and you can as a single person. You definitely can. And then I got some prodding by a coach that says, hey, why are you still inspecting? Why don't you have other inspectors? I said, oh, geez, here we go. So I actually followed the advice, hired someone, and I just could not let go of the reins. And so I hired that person as a inspector helper. And after some period of time, we promoted the person to an actual inspector, and I went on a conference out of state. The very first day he did his first inspection, I got a call, and he said, hey boss, I fell through someone's ceiling. I thought, oh my God, this is the risk that I didn't want to take. This is exactly my fear. And so I'm with other like-minded inspection company owners, and they said, what's wrong with you? And I said, told them what happened. And they said, so? What do you mean, so? Well, what are you going to do? Well, I'm going to make sure that we fix the house to the level of satisfaction of the homeowner. Yeah, that's what you do. And then you go on with your business. So that happened. And then we hired another inspector, and then another. And it just seemed, we got our processes in place and our training, and things got better and more digestible. So let's get into the presentation. All right, sorry. Okay, can you see the presentation, Brenda?
Yes, we can.
Okay, good. So scaling your business from one to many. Now, when I was a single operator, one of the things that I would say when I was going up against multi-inspector firms is, well, when you call when you call me, you know who you're going to get. You're going to get the owner of the company. Now that I'm a multi-inspector, I say, who's monitoring that single operator's quality control? Who's doing that? So it's all about perspective. And I'll tell you, when I first started off, I took a 12-part VHS series training out of Colorado. I can't remember the name of the company. I'd watch a video, I would take the test, I'd fax the test in, they would tell me if I passed or not. It was horrific training, but you know what? It's what we had at the time. And I won't forget my first inspection. I can tell you the address, I can tell you the client's name, and I can tell you that I visibly shook throughout most of the inspection because I was so fearful I might miss something. Things are so much better nowadays with software and training, and we'll talk about a lot of those things as we go through. So I kind of want to set the norm for today. You know, as I mentioned, I really hope this doesn't have too much of a presentation feel. I want us to have interaction. Some of the best dialogues when I was still inspecting, some of the most enriching conversations that I had was with our senior citizens. And I realized it's because they've experienced so much more, and they've gathered wisdom, and that's what I hope to share with you. So please ask. There isn't a question that's off limits. Ask anything, and I'll try to help you any way I can. What does success look like? You know, how do we define success? It's such an open-ended question. You know, when you ask someone, you might say, well, you know, I've always wanted to be a parent of 6 children, with 2 of them being adopted. Or I wanted to have $100,000 in the bank. Or I wanted, you know, to take 3 vacations a year to destinations that I've never been to before. But I would tell you, as a business owner, this is not an easy business, and that's not a discouraging statement. It's not an easy business. And one of my colleagues, he said, this would be the perfect business if we didn't have to deal with clients and agents. And I can't really argue that. It's funny, but there's a lot to what we do, and I still believe it's easier being an employee than an employer, but you know, there's benefits to that as well. So here's I'm sure y'all have seen this, but on the left, what people think success looks like. You know, the company owner is getting a larger commission of the inspection fee. You know, things just seem to fall in line with them. They don't always see what's going on behind the scenes, and that sort of thing. So I totally agree with this graphic. Here's a gentleman. I have a teenage daughter, and it's very difficult to find programming on TV where we can all enjoy it. And we seem to come to terms, and there's a couple of shows that we like. One is the Shark Tank, and the other one is The Prophet, and this happens to be Marcus Lemonis. And I don't agree with everything that he has to say, but last time I checked, he's worth $500 million. So he's got it going on. And I want to share some things that he said that have been meaningful to me. One, he says, if you're not evolving, you're dying. And I can't help but think of Circuit City, Blockbuster, Sears, some taxi companies, and even my own business. You know, when I started inspections, we were using 3-part NCR forms. And some of you more experienced inspectors may remember that. You had to press hard with the pen so that the characters would transfer to the back copy. And then Polaroid cameras came about. And I remember taking pictures on the inspection and stapling them to our reports. And we said, our reports come with pictures. and now look what we have available to us. And even the guys that were inspecting before me, they commonly told me, they said, you know, back in the 80s when they were inspecting, all they used was a flashlight and a screwdriver. A flashlight and screwdriver. And go to any InterNACHI convention or inspector convention for that matter, and go to the vendor area and look what all is available to us now. The profession is really advanced. Another way I've heard this saying is businesses are like plants. They're either growing or they're dying. And I prefer growth. So this next thing is, he says, as the leader, and that's who we are as business owners. We're leaders, or we should be. It's our duty to make sure that everyone is successful. And how do we do that? I think we give them the resources that they need, the training, setting the expectation, giving them positive reinforcement, giving them coaching. And then the bottom line is we just get out of their way and let them do their thing. That's my style of coaching or leadership, which is more servant, more, I guess, democratic. I prefer to make decisions as a group. I'm not afraid to make the difficult decisions, but I think it's one of the things that I say when I do a presentation. I'll go into a room and I'll ask, and you can steal this, okay? I'll ask, who's the smartest person in the room? Who's the smartest? And people will look around awkwardly. And I'm not really looking for an answer. Whoever that happens to be, that person is not smarter than all of us together. And so the whole concept of team, and that's what we say a lot, at least in my firm, is team or family. It's very true. You know, the acronym teams together, everyone achieves more. Very, very true. And so I couldn't agree more with Marcus's statement here. It's our obligation as leaders. And some of you might be still a single operator. If you're a parent, you're a leader, or you should be. I think anything produced by a gentleman by the name of John Maxwell is worth reading and investing and learning from. And he's quoted as saying, I think it's him, as saying, it takes 10,000 hours to become a leader and another 40,000 hours to become a great leader. And that translates to 23 years. So a lot of us are still leaders in training. And my belief is in order for you to lead others and invest in them, you've got to pour into yourself. And we'll talk about that later on as we go through this. Here's another one that really resonates with me. Marcus says, people for me is the only reason that businesses fail or they survive. And thankfully, over the course of my military career and corporate life, I had the privilege of serving under just phenomenal leaders, with the exception of one. And that can really set a person on their heels and change their correction, their course of where they're headed. So I try to remember all the great leaders that I've been around and grab the things that I learned from them and incorporate it in my style of leadership. People are the business. I've heard some business owners say, I keep my staff at arm's length. I don't want to be their friend. And you know what? That works for them, but not for me. And so it's up to you to decide, where you want to be with that. Maybe it's a hybrid. I don't know. But let's move on to the next slide. Marcus talks about three things, the 3 Ps: people, process, and product. And that is a constant thing. If you ever watch his show, that is what he talks about. And when you add the 3 of those, it gets to the objective, and that's to make money. And that's not a greedy thing to say. We have a responsibility to our families, to our staff, and to our communities to run successful businesses. And that means ones that make a profit. So let's break this down a little bit more. I love this quote. It's an African proverb. It says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go with others. So it's perfect for the topic of today's conversation, transitioning from a single operator to a multi-inspector. Or maybe you have 2 or 3 inspectors and you want to get bigger. One thing that we have to rely on is great people. So at some point, we can carve some time out and talk about, how do you find those great people? How do you nurture them? How do you attract them to your company? So, any questions at this point, Brenda? Comments?
We have one, but it really was, or it shows there's one chat, but it is just someone having an issue with their computer. So at this time, no questions. Gary,
Yes?
there's no questions at this time.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right, well, let's move on. What's the next step? What's the next P? Well, I want to define this a little bit better. People you need in business, and I broke it up into 2 different categories. The people we need internally and those that we need outside our business. So if you look at business models, at least in the service industry, it can kind of be categorized in 3 different categories. Growth and marketing, and oftentimes those 2 terms are used interchangeably. And who makes up that division? A representative, and then a supervisor or manager to lead that person, or maybe it's 2 reps. But that's an important division to have. The reality is, you can be the best inspector in your state, unless people know about you, it doesn't mean anything. It's a very, very important division to have. And if that's not you, then hire somebody else that can do that. I know some inspectors who think that marketing is swinging by the realtors' offices and dropping off 75 business cards. The thought of them doing a presentation in front of a group of 100 agents, that's not something they're capable of doing. I think we're all capable. It's not something they want to do or are comfortable doing. So if that's your case, then hire someone to do that. The next division is services. And that's your inspectors, inspector supervisors, and as you get larger, managers. And then the third division is operations. And that's who we call our client care coordinators. Some people call them schedulers. Those are people that answer the phone, schedule the inspections, that type of thing. And then oftentimes, as you get bigger, you'll have an office operations lead, supervisor, or maybe an operations manager. So these are the folks that are needed internally. As your business grows, this grows, it expands, and that sort of thing. This is a kind of a common model that we're seeing across the industry. Externally, I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on each and every one of these, but I did want to spend some time on the business attorney. Very important. Do you go sole proprietorship, LLC, partnership? That's a very important person to have a relationship with. Who's going to set up if you decide to have non-compete, non-solicitation? Who reviews your service agreement with your clients? Very important person. Bookkeeper. Some people do that internally. I think of doing that, but some people enjoy doing that or are good at it. A bookkeeper. Along with a bookkeeper, CPA. Somebody who specializes in digital marketing, and I use that term very loosely. Could be someone who does not only digital marketing in the form of Facebook and Google ads and that sort of thing, but someone who maybe maintains the web, someone who likes HTML code and knows the nuances of robots and spiders and meta tags, I think is what they're called. Again, that doesn't appeal to me. Could I learn it? Could you learn it? Yes, possibly, but sometimes it's just better to outsource that. As you grow, you'll get more computers, more printers, just more things that need to be maintained, fixed, set up, that sort of thing. I'm not saying you have to have a full-time person, but at least a relationship with someone who can expeditiously address your needs. HR, human resources. Again, as you get bigger, that's a key component of virtually any operation. Next three, we're going to spend time on because I think they're coach, mentor, and an accountability partner.
Gary, I have a question. How many inspectors are in your firm? Do you have an office staff? And do you have a brick and mortar office?
Yeah, it's a great question. So including me, and that's probably not fair to include, but including me, we have 10 inspectors. With that, we have an inspection services manager whose role is to train the inspectors, do quality control. He does site inspections, and we can talk more about that if you're interested. I think we've got a section on that later coming up. He does the interviewing. He does the exit interviews, which hopefully we don't have many of those. He makes enhancements to our software. He's responsible for our standard operating procedures, and just really the development of our inspectors. So
Okay.
That's important.
Another question is, my biggest question is, at what rate per inspector do you hire for marketing reps, schedulers, office manager, GM, etc.? One scheduler per 4 inspectors?
Yeah. So I'm not sure. That's a great question. Let me finish the first question. We do have a brick and mortar. My wife formed a company, purchased a building, and I lease it from her. So she's got that figured out, but it's 2,700 square feet. we use pretty much all of it. We have a conference room, we have a training room, we have a kitchen, we have areas for the schedulers to answer phones. The managers have their own individual areas so they can think. It's just a very comfortable space. Is that a requirement? No, it's not a requirement. But so we have that. I think there was a third part to that question, but I don't remember what it was at this moment. So let me move to the next question. What is the ratio of marketing folks to inspectors? We have 2 marketing folks, and we have, like I said, hiring our 10th inspector. So I'm not going to include myself in that anymore because I don't really do inspections. So we have 2. I don't know that that's the right ratio. We're also hiring what's called a virtual assistant, a VA, to help with outbound calls and establishing new relationships with referral sources. If you've chosen the right marketing person, they more than pay for themselves over and over. It's a huge multiple. It's the best things you can do for your business is hiring a growth person. And was there another question with that?
Yes, they were just asking as an example, 1 scheduler per 4 inspectors.
Oh, yeah. So we have 2 schedulers. Mondays are a very hectic day for scheduling. We also have a backup call center. And, we're going to talk about USPs later on in the presentation. You'll always be answering your phone. And that's another discussion. It was such a difficult decision for me when I was doing inspections by myself. I just kind of had a rule that says, when I'm inspecting, I'm not answering the phone. So can you imagine, all of you are my customer. I'm doing an inspection. We're just about to enter the crawl space of the home. I look at it and I go, excuse me. Hi, this is Gary with Discovery Inspections. How can I help you? Oh, 3-bedroom, 2-bath house? Yeah, can you tell me I'll be right with you. Can you tell me a little bit more about its age and what you're looking for? For me, I just think it's rude. I just think it's flat out rude. Not only is it rude, but it's an interruption in my mental process. I should be fully focused on what I'm doing, that house and that customer. And now I took a distraction. And so the risk there is somebody going to leave a voice message? Or are they going to go, next? I'll just keep calling until I find somebody that answers the phone. I can tell you this as a consumer, when I have a problem with my computer, I have a computer guy that I know, like, and trust. If he doesn't answer the phone and I got a problem, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to go to the next guy or girl. So the importance of, there's an expense of having people answer your phones. And I trained them to answer the phones. These are key things that I want said or not said. We practice inflection and timing and a lot of this stuff. They're better than me now. In fact, they won't even let me answer the phone at my own company. They're just better. So think about that. I know we all think that, nobody can inspect like me. Nobody can, answer the phones like me. We keep track of everything we do as a company. There's an expression that I learned from the corporate world. You can't manage what you don't measure. Think about that. You can't manage what you don't measure. We measure everything. And they're called KPIs, key performance indicators, or metrics. Some people call them metrics. When when you're trying to lose weight, your metric or your KPI is decided by the scales, right? And your record of your progress, that's your metric. So, and many of you likely are ISN users. They have a call close ratio feature in ISN that tells you how well you're, when the call rings, and that's the marketing or growth division's responsibility, is to make that phone ring. Well, once it does, it's the responsibility of your operations team, your client care coordinators, your schedulers, to convert that into actual business. So I can tell you ours, and I'm very proud to say this, is around 94%. 94. So 94 out of 100 times, we're booking the inspection. Now you might think, well, what about your backup call center? What are they like? Well, they're at 91%. They run 3 to 4% behind our local folks. I'm okay with that. That's a pretty high number. Did I answer all that?
No, sir. And I'll kind of push a couple of these questions together. I think we can answer it. And it is, how do you structure your pay for inspectors? Is it per job, per hour? Did you have to change your pricing structure when you went to a multi-inspector program? And are your inspectors full-time, part-time, or 1099s?
Wow, those are some great questions, and you grouped a lot of them together, I think. So there's different pricing models out there, and I'm in several different groups nationwide, so I get to see so many different ways of doing it. And it's such a great debate. Do you pay hourly? Do you pay flat rate? Do you pay commission? They all have their pluses and minuses, and I think the industry is still trying to figure it out. You pay flat rate. Let's say you pay, I'll just throw a number, $125 an inspection. Okay, so I go and I do a 2-bedroom condo, and I'm done in an hour and a half. I'm happy as an inspector. The next job I get, it's a double wide on a crawl space with 2 barns, and I'm there for 4 hours. Not so happy. So I'm not sure that's the route to go. The percentage, that seems to be the oldest, most established method of paying. The problem with that is if I raise prices for our inspections, everybody gets an automatic raise. Automatic. Whether they earned it or deserve it or not, they get a raise. Not sure I like that one. That's where we are now. And then the hourly, I know California is kind of leading the way on that. You get a factory in overtime and that sort of thing. I'm not trying to avoid the question. I just don't know that anybody has the ultimate proven method of getting it done in a way that's beneficial to the employees and also manageable and profitable for the company. So it's a great question. I just don't have a really solid answer for it. Again, right now we're doing commission because that's all we've done for years and years. I think there was another question in there that I need something to write with. That was a good group there.
Last question I have for you is, how many schedulers did you say that you had?
Yeah. So we have 2 schedulers. The other thing too, remember I came from the military. One of the things the military does better than anybody else in the world, anyone, is transitioning of personnel. They got it down. And I'll speak in general terms. Most military transfers happen at 2 years, maybe 3. So there's constant movement. And so they do something to counter that, and it's called cross training. So if one person gets taken out of service, another can quickly step in there and do that. So we've done some cross training with our growth and our marketing team. We have 2 full-time people answering the phones. And when it really gets hot and heavy, then the marketing, the growth folks will jump in and answer phones as well. But you know what? Here's the thing with technology, the way it is, golly, now you might have one person answering the phone, and the overflow can go to your call center. That's possible. So that's the ratio that we have right now, and it works. I think missing a call for a business is a kiss of death. You need to answer all those calls.
I think that probably answers all of the questions, Gary. One came back and asked, what percentage on the commission?
Yeah, that's another one that's of great debate, and I don't mind sharing mine. I told you I'd be transparent with everything, and I certainly am. There's an expression called the golden handcuffs, and I'm not sure if you've heard that or not. But I can tell you, turnover for a company is very expensive. Very expensive. When I say turnover, people don't stay long. And years ago, when someone would approach me, hey, I need to talk with you. Oh God, I already know what that means. And I do this internal self-reflection thing going, oh my God, how did I not serve this person? Why would they go elsewhere? And there's a great company owner out of Washington, DC. His name's Rob Hopkin. He runs ProTech. And he taught me something years ago. And initially I didn't like the expression, but I get it now. He said simply this: employees are temporary. Employees are temporary. So, years ago, and it was really probably the generation before mine, people would be, at a company, 30, 40, 50 years. I worked with a guy at Delta Airlines. He was 86 years old as a mechanic. And we gave him the easiest job he could possibly do. He used a screwdriver to work on a simple component. And invariably, at various points during the day, he would stop rotating his screwdriver, take a nap, and then a few minutes later, come back to, and he'd start working again. And nobody bothered him. It's very unusual for someone to be there that long. So there's an expression called the golden handcuffs. And what it means is we as business owners need to be creatively thinking of ways to keep our folks happy, keep them in the company, keep them looking at other opportunities. And I'm going to tell you something. I have a different mindset now. When someone comes to me and says, hey, I'm taking a position. We had one inspector leave to go to the FAA to be a air traffic controller. Well, I don't know if you know this or not, but they make a handsome salary. There's no way I could counter that. And 95% of me, this is truthful, 95% of me said, God, I'm happy for this guy. He is advancing his life and for the good. The 5%, I was selfish going, oh my God, we're losing him, So, but the reality is I want to be a sponsor for other people's success. And I hope that you guys and gals on the call are the same way. Don't freak out when employees if they're with you 2, 3, 4, 5 years, then they blessed your business. They were part of your life and you were a part of theirs. And so, anyway, it's kind of a long, I think I varied a little bit, but what do we pay our employees? Oh, I'm talking about the inspectors on the commission side. And I've got colleagues all over on the place. Some go as high as 50%, which is very difficult to have profit left for the company. 50% is really high. It's really unusual to be at 50%. Other companies that are colleagues of mine, they start around 25%. You think, golly, they don't think much of their folks. But there's other things they do for them, like gym memberships, and they have health and dental benefits and 401k, and they get to drive a vehicle, and I don't know what else, things like that. And so I'm kind of in the middle with it. We're routinely exploring that. We start our folks off at 30%. You think 30%. My business model is this. As the inspector gains credentials, they're more meaningful, they're more valuable to the clients, and they're more valuable to us. And so we increase their compensation. So when they pick up additional certifications, in our case, it's radon, it's indoor air quality, it's commercial inspections and code certification. And then I think the fifth one is certified master inspector. So every one of those, they gain 2%. So up to 40%.
All right, that's all the questions I have, Gary. So we'll hold for the next group. Thank you.
All right, listen, you got to keep me on track, Brenda, because I could go on and on and on. You give me that shepherd's hook, okay?
You're good.
All right, so remember the other P, this is processes. What does that mean? How we do things. Now, admittedly, one of my favorite foods to eat, a little treat for me, is going to Outback Steakhouse. And what do I like at Outback Steakhouse? I like the coconut fried shrimp, okay? And it's expensive, it's probably overpriced, but that's a treat for me. And that sets the stage for the rest of the eating experience. Now, when we talk about processes, when I eat coconut fried shrimp in Georgia, or I go to Florida or Kansas City or San Diego, I'm kind of expecting a similar flavor, similar number of shrimp, similar presentation. I expect the pricing might be different, but if their process is right, the experience should be very similar. Same thing for us. When you go from one inspector to 3 to 5 to 10 or 20 or whatever you have, there should be some similarities in how your inspection is done. Now, what's the difference? The difference is going to be in personality types. And we've got a wide variety on our team. Got some that would rather they'd rather inspect alone with the house and they be one with the home. Got some that enjoy telling stories and the interaction with the clients and talk about favorite barbecue restaurants that happen to be in the area. Big personalities. Everybody's different, but the experience should be similar. So how do you set that up? I think it's important to have a training manual. And when we think training, I'm not just talking about your inspectors. I want you to think about training for your growth folks, training for your schedulers, so that we have that consistency. Another manual I think is important is administrative manual. How How do we collect checks? What do we do in the event that we have a bad check that comes in? What's our policy on inclement weather? That type of thing, administrative manual. In that should also be components of HR, your tobacco use policy, and your sexual harassment policy, and that sort of thing. Growth in the marketing folks, they should have their own manual. And SOP, standard operating procedures. How is it we take a water quality sample? From one inspector to the next, we should have a standard operating procedure that should be directed from in the training manual that says, hey, when we get to the property, we're going to sanitize the kitchen faucet. We're going to run the water for 2 minutes. We're going to take our sample. We're going to bottle it up. We're going to document, and we have 24 hours. All of that should be like regiment, no deviations. And that's what an SOP does. And this is what these processes, it's really, don't gloss over this. Here's the thing. One of my mentors told me years ago, Sloan, every day you should be doing something to make your business more sellable. Every day. Well, I agree with him every day. So when a company comes in, or an investor comes in, or a possible future owner comes in, they're going to want to look. They're going to ask for these processes. Another show that I watch on TV is Repo Airplane, or I can't remember the name of it, but guys that go out and repossess airplanes. And they get these airplanes. The airplanes, it's only half its value if they don't have all the maintenance records with the airplane. And so you're not going to get value out of your business unless you have these things that are on this slide. So is there a question that came out of this? Because I feel like there is.
Let's see what we've got. Do you hire and train new inspectors or prefer experienced inspectors? And do you require a specific commitment? And the last question there was, what is your average inspection fee for a 2,500 square foot home with having commissions taken out?
Yeah. All right. I'll try to remember that. I remember a bit of one of the earlier questions. Do you have any part-time inspectors? And the answer to that is yes. Is that what I want? No. Part-time inspectors. To me, it's like having a part-time doctor. And you know what? I was a part-time inspector for 10 years. So how hypocritical I am now, but I did everything I could in terms of training, my tools, my procedures, everything, such that no one ever suspected I was a part-time inspector. So the part-time inspectors we have now, we have one. Yeah, one. He's a firefighter. He's actually a captain at a fire station. And he is so good at what he does. And we feel in 2 years, he's going to retire from that and he's going to be with us full time. So can it be done? Yes. It's oftentimes the availability thing. So let's say your inspector does an inspection today. He goes back on shift tomorrow. He's a firefighter. The client calls in and says, hey, I got a question on page 29 about what he wrote up on this. I think it's a little awkward for our office to be calling him while he's on shift working for another employer. I think that's just difficult, maybe unreasonable. So there's that. Average inspection fee. Last time I checked, we were at $535. And so you want to know how do you get average? That's rolling everything that we do into it, everything. our ancillary services. You know, there might be a way in ISN or Next Inspect or whoever you're using to segregate those out. So it's, you know, if you do a standalone, like a radon test for, let's say $150, well, that pulls, if you group that in with your regular inspections, that actually pulls the overall inspection fee down. When you do a $2,500 commercial inspection, that pulls it up. So, yeah, as it is right now, we're at 5. I think it was 35 the last time I checked. And I think there was something else to that question. Help me, Brenda.
Okay, looking at it, they were wanting to know the average for taking commissions out, but I'm getting a few more questions in here, and they are: do you hire someone to write the SOPs and other processes? And then do you provide the inspection tools and equipment?
Yeah, great questions. No, the SOPs are written by the people that are responsible for them. And so we have a standard operating procedure template. And that's really important. That's a rider downer, okay? Make sure you have a template. And, you know, the template gives you that consistency. So when one division's reading another one's work, they can follow right along, that type of thing. And we don't let just one person write it. You know, oftentimes when I write things, man, you know, I think I'm Edgar Allan Poe, you know, when I write this stuff. Someone else reads it and they go, what is he saying? So we have a review process that we go through. So there's that. And what was the other piece?
Let's see. It was, and I scooted up to see if I could reword anything in those previous questions. Do you provide inspection tools and?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So if I'm going to tell you, if you are an employer and you have employees, it's really unusual for you to expect them to buy their own tools. I think it's unusual. I wouldn't expect an inspector to have to buy an infrared camera or a laptop or a tablet, or I wouldn't expect them to have to pay for software. You know, if they want extras of things like, you know, the company provides a flashlight, then if they want a backup flashlight, then they can get that. But we have a tool list and we expect our inspectors to have everything on the list. And you know what my inspection services manager does? He checks from time to time to make sure everybody's got what they're supposed to have. Because if we don't do that, oh, you know, that sensor went bad on the carbon monoxide detector, and I've been meaning to tell you. Well, how long has it been bad? Quite a while. So now if you have 1099s, which are independent contractors, and there's a big brouhaha with that right now. You know, that bill passed in the Senate or the House, and now it's going to the Senate. They want to get rid of 1099s nationwide. It's going to have a direct impact on many companies. But nonetheless, if you have 1099s and you're providing tools and you're telling them where to go at what time, you're taking a huge risk, because based on IRS rules, they're employees.
Okay, and we've got 2 good questions. I think this will be something that a lot of the attendees would like to know. And it would be, what would be the first steps to go from one person or themselves to the first trainee? Second question, where do you find your prospective new inspector employees?
All right. Uh, can you jot those down, Brenda? Because I think those are going to be answered in the upcoming slides.
Okay, I will most definitely do that.
All right.
Well, good.
Great questions. Keep those questions coming because like I said, I had hoped this would be interactive, just having a conversation. And I love these questions. There hasn't been a bad one yet. All right, why are we doing this? Profit, right? I mean, that's the bottom line. And for me, I'm 56 years old. A lot of my friends are beginning to retire. And I see what their stress level has, how that's diminished. You know, that's the point of us doing all this work, you know, building our businesses up, like I said earlier, so that we can make them attractive, so that we could sell them, and that be our retirement. So that's a pretty good incentive. All right, I want to share a tool that was shared with me. Some of you may know about this, others may not. It's called SWOT analysis. And I put a graphic here, so it kind of defines what it is, but it stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So this is typically where I like to use it's called a mind map. And the mind map is nothing more than you have a center objective, okay? That's your goal, that's your target, that's your mission, that's your objective. Okay, well, how do you plan on accomplishing that? What's the tactical approach to that? And let me make it real simple. Let's say you want to lose 25 pounds by 4th of July. What are you going to do for that? What's some ideas? Let's see. I could drink more water. Okay, I could sleep more. I could take the stairs at the office instead of the elevator. I could hire a nutritionist. I could go to a gym. I could get an accountability partner at the gym. All of these things are supporting activities for your goal. And so when you do a SWOT analysis, when you look at strengths, what is it that you do good in your company? What is it? Are you good with the technical side? Are you an expert on new construction? Are you good at writing standard operating procedures? Are you good with first-time home buyers? Do you specialize in working with engineers, which can be very, they're just deep thinkers. And they make for long inspections. What is it that is a strength of yours? And so you outline all that. Opportunities, hey, they're extending the highway down into my county. There's going to be a mall down there. There's going to be supporting businesses and multifamily housing. It's an opportunity for me to get in there and promote my service. An opportunity might be nobody in my area does sewer scan inspections. I'll be the first. Opportunity is what it sounds. Let's go to weaknesses. One of the weaknesses I have, admittedly, and I think I already shared this with you, is numbers. Knowing your numbers, and it's really, really important. Know your numbers. Your cash flow, accounts receivable, accounts payable. Is it time to invest? What's our profit margin? That's just not something I'm good at, and I don't want to be good at. So I'm hiring someone to be my advisors. It's a weakness, and I'm okay with it being a weakness. Threats. I kind of divide this up into two categories: an internal threat and an external threat. An internal threat might be, let's say I get COVID. I can't inspect anymore. If I'm not inspecting and I'm the only inspector, what does that do to my income? Right? I just had foot surgery. I still can't drive. That's an impact on my business. What if I get burnt out because I'm working so many hours, or I have somebody on my team that says, I'm burnt out and I just want to go back to being a stay-at-home mom? It's a threat. External threats. Oh, I don't know. Maybe storms in Texas. Maybe interest rates going back up. Maybe oil prices going back up. We get involved in another war. I mean, just housing shortage. Those are all threats. We can't control them, but we can react to them or respond to them. We just need to know they're there. It's very healthy for all of you to do a SWOT analysis. If you don't know how to do one, there's so much information on YouTube. There's some great tutorials there. Do it. This is an important slide. Is there any questions on it, Brenda? I'll take that as a no.
I'm so sorry, Gary. It takes a moment since I mute myself to get that going. I have a couple of questions here. I don't know if you'll answer them now or we move on. Do you only hire InterNACHI's CPI in some states? It's not required to be certified or licensed. And it says, I personally think I would only do a certified or licensed person. Another says, if you have an older solo inspector losing his eyesight, needs your input on hiring an inspector that can help get reports out in a timely manner and how to seek for one. So those are two really just questions on your hiring practices.
Yeah. All right, well, let's talk about the older inspector losing his eyesight. Is there another opportunity for him to serve in your company? Could he be a trainer? Could he be writing SOPs? Could he be an inspector assistant? It depends on how valuable that person is. If that person has been loyal, has had a positive attitude, has had low complaints, I'm going to move mountains for that person and try to accommodate them. So what was the other question, please?
Okay, the other question was, and let me move this over a little bit. Do you hire only InterNACHI CPIs?
Yeah. So again, that's a great roundtable discussion with multi-inspector owners nationwide. I just hired someone. She's 19 years old. And I said, she, 19. And I told her, I said, you're going to be discriminated against for two reasons. One, you're female, and two, you're young. And I said, so we're equal opportunity here. Here's the thing. You got to be better than me. And that's what I told her. You got to be better than me. And folks, you know what she said? She leaned forward and she said, game on. Game on. She went through all of InterNACHI. She's went through our training program that's a supplement to InterNACHI. She's out there inspecting alone now, doing solo inspections. And we're getting positive feedback already on her. So everybody has an opportunity to do pretty much anything they want within our firm, provided they have the drive to do so. And I call that grit. I hired our first office manager. She made so many mistakes. I swore I was being tested by the Lord. and I should have fired her multiple times, and she would tell you that as well. But she never gave up. She never passed the buck. And she has been with us 10 years now. Oh, so I want to answer the question on the CPI. I don't really care. I think that sets a educational foundation. If you pull somebody from the street and start taking them on inspections, they're going to be so lost because they just do not have the educational foundation to understand even what they're looking at. So we've done it as a blend where they join us and they go through InterNACHI while they're doing the field training with us. That seems to work okay. So I think there's probably more to that question, and I'm gonna delve into it. Is there anybody that you wouldn't hire with respect to what if it's a inspector that's got tons of experience and he's just tired of being his own boss? He just wants to be an inspector. Well, this is where I'll tell you, we have a multi-step interview process. Multi-step. It's pretty intense. I got that concept from Dave Ramsey, who's a financial guru. Many of you may know. And he was doing a presentation and I was there, and he said, do you know how many interviews it takes to get into my company? And he said, it depends on the position, but anywhere between 10 and 13 interviews. 10 and 13. And he says, well, the reason for that is I've got to keep the crazies out of my building. Now, admittedly, we don't have that many interviews, but the reality we do, it's a multi-step interview process. And it's because we simply want the best. And I don't mind sharing this with you. I have a 19-year-old daughter. She's trying to get into the Air Force Academy. It is not an easy thing to do. It's not. You got to get congressman's nomination, interviews, physical fitness test, academics, community service. And honestly, they probably take less than 1% of people who apply. It is not an easy thing to do. But and I don't care if it's the Air Force Academy or West Point or Naval Academy, all of them have very high standards. And that's what, that's what we want for our customers, high standards. And let me just tell you something. I don't know what your reaction was to the cost of our inspection. We're probably one of the more expensive companies in the area. And I don't mean this disrespectfully at all. But cheaper inspectors know less, do less, and that's why they charge less. So if you're going to charge more, you better bring it. And bringing it means having high standards, great equipment, quality control, awesome staff, great customer service, and just a world-class experience, not just an inspection. You can charge more.
Okay, if you would, just one question that kind of relates to that, Gary. It says, what is a good starting salary for someone that just obtained their license? They were working as a salesperson with windows. They made about 70 to 90,000 yearly. His target is 50,000.
Yeah, that's very doable. I don't know what area of the US that is. I would think in some areas of California, that salary would be very difficult to stretch. But I think it's a fair question for all of us to be asking. What what salary range do you have to provide for your family? And then what do you want? Those are two different numbers usually. If they're saying, well, I got to make 120 to 140,000. Not many inspectors. Well, I can't think of any inspectors that make that much. So there's no point in continuing with the conversation. But 50,000, that's very reasonable. You got to keep that inspector busy. And I want the inspectors earning more than they need.
Okay, I think that probably answered it. And someone said, how long do you mentor or train someone before they're ready to be in the field and complete inspections on their own?
Yeah. Good question. Again, when you talk to multi-inspector companies, you're going to get different answers on this. I think overall NACHI training is academically good training, and we continue to train with NACHI training. There are things that field that NACHI training doesn't cover, and one of them is emotion management. And if you're not good with emotion management, and I'm talking about yours as an inspector and helping manage emotion of the buyers, the sellers, contractors, family members, take some courses on that. Really important. I hate the expression that we get called deal killers. I hate that. I don't know anybody out there that tries to write a report or pounds his chest to say, hey, look at all the bad things I found about this house. We're professionals, so I'd rather be called contract assassins. Now that's a joke. It's a joke. It's not a good joke, but it's a joke. So the NACHI training is a great foundation. The field training, what we do, we used to do 100 inspections escorted by a seasoned inspector, 100 inspections. That's a lot. That's a lot of time. So we played with the number. We backed it down to 50 inspections. What I don't want to do is compromise the readiness of the inspector. What I do want to do is get that inspector signed off so he's not receiving trainee pay, that he's or she is getting inspector pay. So we're at 50. And it's actually in our contract, 50 inspections. I'm going to tell you that is a moving, floating target. So it could be slightly less, it could be more. I had one inspector said, I'm not ready yet. And I think at the 80th inspection, we both agreed it was time to go solo. So there's a lot to the field training. How do you set up the inspection? We call it a kitchen talk. You're thanking the customer. You're reviewing the concerns that they expressed with your client care coordinators over the phone. You're outlining what you can do and what you can't do during the inspection. You're giving them safety tips. You're reminding them that you and they are both inside someone else's personal environment. So, don't jump on the beds or, people do weird things during inspections, and you know who takes the hit? The inspector. And I'm sure you all have stories of that. I got a complaint years ago. The lady said that our inspector trashed the house. How disrespectful. So I couldn't wait to figure out who it was. It was me. I did the inspection. I called her up and she said, you did the inspection? I said, you ran the water in my sink. In the kitchen sink, yeah. She said, well, why would you do that? I said, well, we have to check flow and look for hot water temperature and does it leak? And she said, it's fine. But what you didn't do is you didn't bother to have the courtesy to take a towel and wipe down the water droplets from the inside of the stainless steel sink. And now I've got spots there. So I ended up driving an hour and a half back to wipe down her sink. Anyway, emotion management during an inspection. You can kill an inspection just by the facial expression on your facial expression, body language, facial expression, the words that you use. You know, we don't use words like adjectives like butchered. Yeah, that was really butchered. Boy, they butchered that one. Or this is the third house in this subdivision. I found the same problem. Why would you say things like that? So, you know, learning how to talk. I love magic, and part of the experience of magic is delivered by the pattern, the dialogue the magician gives to set up the trick. It's the same thing with us. There's a pattern that we should be using during the inspection, at the beginning of the inspection and at the end of the inspection to close. And sometimes we have to, you know, manage emotion during the middle of the inspection because the house is maybe revealing things that they didn't notice on their first and only visit to the home. So, okay. Brenda, we have 15 minutes left. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. You actually have almost, I would say because we were a little bit late starting, we probably have about 20 minutes.
Okay. All right. Well, let me move on to the next slide then. I think we've covered SWOT analysis pretty well. Define yours. Now, here's the ingredients to pretty much any business out there. Forget home inspections for a minute. But it starts with having a mindset or a vision. Okay. So if any of you were to invite me to your home and you were kind enough to pick me up at the airport and I got in the car, one of the things I might say to you is, before I buckle my seat, tell me where we're going. So before I leave the company that I'm currently disgruntled with and joining yours, tell me where we're going. What's the future of the company look like? Where do I fit in that? Are there advancement opportunities? What can potentially happen with my salary? So you as a business owner need to decide what your vision is. It's your vision. So that's step one. Step two is the strategy and how you're going to execute that. How are you going to go about that? And there's great words in here. Oh, look at that. Right above strategy, it says SWOT. Well, there you go. Timeline. When's this going to happen? You know, goals. That's the strategy. How are you going to make it happen? And the third, which is the most appealing to all of you, I guarantee it. You ready? It's the tools. So the vision, or mindset, the strategy, and the tools. When I go to InterNACHI's conferences, one of the most attended areas is the vendor area. Why? Because that's where the tools are. We love tools. And one of my favorite stores is Lowe's or Home Depot. I don't care. I like them both. You know, I grab a buggy when I go in there, and I can't wait to put things in my buggy. And that's kind of how I am at you know, the vendor areas of these inspector conventions. You know, what's the latest infrared camera? Or there's a crawl bot. You know, how many of those should we buy? Or there's a body camera. Can I get a deal if I buy 10 of them? you know, so the tools. But I want to talk about, it's not just physical tools. We want to talk about that. I'll share with that, what business tools are you going to use? So let's move forward. Here's another technique that's really, really effective. It's called benchmarking. And I'm not sure how many of you have heard it. It's something that I used to do when I was in the corporate world, and we're doing that now in the inspection world. What does benchmarking mean? I'm going to read it. It's in benchmarking business is a way of comparing best industry practices against your own organization's processes or your business to identify performance gaps and achieve a competitive advantage. Benchmarking can be applied against any process, approach, function, or product in business. So when I was in the airline industry, we had a big high-level meeting, and a high-ranking individual from the FAA came to our meeting. He says, you have some great people in your company. You really do. He said, but you have this mindset that if the idea isn't born within your company, it simply can't exist. And he said, and some of our management team got offended. And he said, you need to go out there in your industry or other industries and beg, borrow, or steal the best ideas. Now, that's a harsh way of putting it, but benchmarking is extremely valuable. And so think about opportunities in your area. Do you know who I've benchmarked recently? I benchmarked Lexus dealership. A Lexus dealership. How is it they make it such a positive experience with their folks? I benchmarked Disney. I took a Disney cruise. Phenomenal experience. They make it magical. So you can benchmark other companies that are willing to do that with you. We have an open policy for any inspectors in our area. They can come visit us. They can jump in on inspector meetings. We've had that before. In fact, next week, we've got, I think it's 6 different companies coming from Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, to sit in on our staff meetings and our inspector meetings. And we're just going to do some brainstorming and masterminding to help each other out. Remember what I said before, no one of us is smarter than all of us together. Questions?
I don't have a question.
Okay, so I think you said I don't have a question. All right, next slide. Anyone recognize who this is? You can put it in the chat. Just type the person's name. Hall of Famer. This guy has won 17 Golden Gloves. What makes me impressed with him is he benchmarked other companies. In this case, other baseball teams. You think, well, how did he do that? He actually paid a company to provide him critical information on the batting habits and statistics of the teams he was going to face next. Did the batter have a habit of letting the first pitch go? Did the batter prefer hitting a knuckleball, a fastball, curveball? He paid allegedly $35,000 for this batting report every game he played. He knew what it took to be a Hall of Famer. And there's information out there that we need to invest in. You know, there's information brokers that, you know, you can pull up, hey, how many houses have closed in the last 12 months that are new construction? You can buy that. You can pay for that information and set up an email or postcard campaign to say, hey, I know your house is about to lose its first-year warranty. Would you be interested in us doing a comprehensive inspection before you give up your warranty? It's just an example. I couldn't help but look at this guy's elbow, and it's no wonder they have surgery and shoulder pain. All right. Love this quote from Harry S. Truman. I think he was our 33rd president, if I'm not mistaken. Not all readers are leaders, but all leaders are readers. And admittedly, I'm not that great of a reader. I like to watch videos, but I try to read a book a month, and expect the same of my staff. And we don't read the same book. And so when we get together, we brief each other on what the last few chapters in the book that we were reading, what we gathered from that. It's pretty cool. Remember what I said, invest in your team, personal development, professional development. I thought it would be good to share some of the books that have been meaningful to us. And I'm not going to talk about each one in the interest of time. Good to Great is a phenomenal book by Jim Collins. I read that years ago, and I don't know if it's been updated since, but fantastic book. There's an easy read if you want an easy read. This is about 2 to 2.5 hours. It's called Who Moved My Cheese? And what it talks about is change. And there's always change. There's change in our industry, there's change in our business, and there's, you know, change in just how we do things. So it's a great read, really easy read. I'd recommend that. Here's another one called Traction by Gino Wickman. It's part of the EOS system, Entrepreneur Operating System. This is one of the staple books that they have. It talks about the importance of having regimented meetings that are meaningful and structured properly. And there's just a wealth of information in this book. And a book list would not be complete without Dale Carnegie's book, How to Win Friends and Influence People. I think this was originally written in 1955. And our marketing manager is reading it now. Moving on, another great book by Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective. What is it they commonly do to be effective and successful? And that's a good read. In fact, one of my colleagues took the contents of this book and created a lunch and learn. Why couldn't you do that? Another phenomenal book called Atomic Habits. Love the expression at the front, tiny changes will lead to remarkable results. It's a great read as well. And then here's one I do want to spend a little bit of time with. This is called The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber. I refer to this book a lot. I recommend it a lot. In the book, I'll tell you, I'm not, you know what I'm going to tell you. He talks about a bakery, and one of the individuals in the bakery is the baker. And this person gets up, doesn't mind getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, getting to work at 4, firing up the ovens, kneading the dough, baking the pastries, getting everything ready for the store to open just in time for the manager to come in, open the store, turn the lights on, get everything ready. Pricing's good. the floors are clean, they're greeting customers, they have a relationship with local customers, they know what they're like. That's the manager. And then the third person, the third role is the entrepreneur, the actual owner of the company. And the owner doesn't like to do those other things, but the owner is really good with numbers and has a great business mind and says, hey, you know what? We want to expand into other areas of the city. And then when we really get this thing rolling, we're actually going to franchise. Those are three different roles. And when you're a single operator, you have one or two inspectors, those roles are kind of blurred. We're almost doing all of it, right? So as you grow, you'll define what is it you're good at, what is you like, and you get to divvy up and delegate to others. It's just when we're in a role that just doesn't fit well, that makes for a miserable life. I got some good news for you. If you don't like reading books, here is an app. It's called Blinkist. It will actually take the contents of the book, and they currently have 4,500 nonfiction titles. They've basically outlined cliff notes that are no longer than 15 minutes that highlight the contents of the books. So there's something for everyone there.
Okay, are you ready for some questions?
Boy, I'm ready.
All right. And I won't go back until you tell me to on the questions that were asked earlier. But what inspection program format do you use? And do you have everyone on the same program, or do they use their own versions and turn it into you for review?
All right, let me take that one first, okay?
Okay.
You remember I was talking about three-part NCR forms, handwritten forms. There's somebody, I'm told, and I can't confirm this, somebody in my area that still does handwritten reports. I don't see how, but technology is available. There's really some phenomenal software packages out there, with trials. Home Gauge is one, Home Inspector Pro is another, Spectora is another. There's several. Horizon makes one. There's several out there that are really, really good. What I did is I sampled pretty much every single one that was out there. And oftentimes it's just a personal thing. I like how it looks, or it's easy to navigate. For me, I wanted to make sure that we had collaborative editing. And what I mean by that is, if I double up or triple up on an inspection with 2 or 3 inspectors, I want them all to simultaneously be able to work on the same report and update. And many of them are getting that way. We currently use Spectora. I think it's probably the most expensive out there. I would say that if Apple were to design a software, it would look like Spectora. But there's some folks that are very happy with their software out there. Talk to them. We do not have a review process for the inspectors. When the inspectors are given the right to do solo inspections, they've got it all. They do their inspection, they write the report, and they're required to do a review of their work before it actually gets sent out. Later on, I'm going to be talking about quality control on that, so I'll share that with you. But my encouragement to any of you, don't be afraid to try new software. We were using Home Inspector Pro successfully, and Spectora caught my eye. I said, my biggest fear is this change. How long is it going to take my inspectors to learn it? And she said 2 days. I said, yeah, right. It really was about 2 days. So they could be proficient. But again, there's a lot of great software out there. Ask around, do the trials, and see what fits for you.
Okay. Several questions here. So let's see if I can put them together. It says, how do you bring on your first inspector? Do you start them following right away shadowing you? And do you train them nights and weekends? And what pay would you pay them as they shadow you?
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't expect people to work nights and weekends. I don't. If they want to, I mean, we don't work nights. How can you inspect a house or commercial building in the dark? I wouldn't want to do it. But Saturdays, we do Saturdays. I've done Sunday inspections. I've done holiday inspections. You know, my thing is people deserve their time off. And, you know, I'm one of these leaders that says, hey, if you want time off, take time off. And you shouldn't feel guilty about asking for it. You've earned it. During the training period, I'm just thinking of other inspection companies, about our own. We pay $50 an inspection to be a trainee. If it's a big house, they're going to earn more because they're going to be there longer. If it's a commercial, they're going to earn more because they're there longer. But you know, people have to live; they have to support their family. So, you know, and it's kind of a built-in incentive. Hey, I want to earn more than $50 an inspection. So.
Okay, and here's a question from an accounting standpoint. I understand this part, and it is, what is the cost to get a new trainee inspecting by themselves from the first day you meet until they are inspecting by themselves? In other words, how much money are you out before they are bringing in money?
Yeah, okay, that's pretty straight up. You know, if you're the if you've got W-2s, then you've got a cost there with your software, with your electronics. And I say electronics, I'm talking about a tablet or a laptop. You've got software rental or software purchase. You've got uniforms. I think our industry is a service industry and people should wear uniforms. That's, you know, I had one of my mentors years ago, I said, if you're going to be in the game, you got to wear the uniform. I agree with him. So provide that. And then their salary for doing 50 inspections, you can figure that out. 50 times 50 is what? $2,500. And there's other fees associated with that. You know, if you want to give them super lockbox access, and you know, you've got to pay for if you decide to have you know, a lawyer on retainer or E&O insurance. There's other fees that aren't coming to mind right now, but you know, there's an investment, and that's why it's so dang important that you make the right choice. And somebody doesn't stay with you for 2 weeks and go, hey, you know what? I didn't realize it, but I'm in crawl spaces. Or I get real shaky on ladders. I didn't realize it. I thought it'd be okay. And I've had that before. So.
Thank you so much, Gary. I think we have reached that part of the class that we will have a raffle and give away a prize for attending. And the prize is the InterNACHI Inspection Textbook Library. But first, Gary, it was a great class, lots of good comments. The class has been recorded, so it will be there for anyone to go back and review some of Gary's presentation, our questions and answers that came up. We appreciate you being in our class. And don't forget, and I did post it in the chat box about joining the virtual visits with InterNACHI staff. You may have questions that you would like to ask there. But okay, the winner today for the InterNACHI Inspection Textbook Library is Jim Conley. Jim, you are the winner of the InterNACHI Inspection Textbook Library. If you would, go into the chat box and just put your name, address, and your InterNACHI number so that we will know how to find you. Again, thank you so much, Gary. It's been a pleasure being your host. Is there anything else that you'd like to add before we go out?
Yes, I would say this. It's, we have the privilege. I say this sincerely. We have the privilege of serving our community through home inspections and commercial building inspections. And what an honor that is. We owe it to our clients and ourselves and our companies to be the very best that we can be. And so we never stop pouring into ourselves and investing in ourselves. And my encouragement to all of you is never be afraid to ask for help. We've got such an incredible community, and NACHI has a mentor program built within it. People were willing to help you. Don't steal their blessing by not asking them for help.
I agree.
Thank you.
I agree. Miranda has joined us, and Miranda is our guru with our classes online. So Miranda, do you have anything to say?
I don't have a lot to say, but if you do have any questions, feel free to email me. I'll put my email in this chat. It's just miranda@internachi.org. I know that some were having a little trouble joining the webinar, so we did change some settings, so you shouldn't have any problems throughout the day, but just contact me if you do. And then Jim, it looks like we're still just waiting on your email address.
Brenda, I also want to thank you for being my co-pilot. You did a fantastic job.
Oh, thank you. Thank
Fantastic.
you. I appreciate that. All right, we'll end this session. Miranda, I'll look for Jim's information. Jim, if you will go in there and please put it in there or email us, Miranda@internachi.org or Brenda@internachi.org, and we'll make sure we have it. Thank you again, Jim. I appreciate Jim. Thank you again, Gary. I appreciate it.
Jim did a great job too.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.